What's up, guys? Jonathan Raspberry here again for the second video in the series Our Games. So we're taking a game between a 1600 as white and a 1400 as black from chess.com. Actually, speaking of chess.com, before we get started, just like to say, if you're on chess.com or you're interested in getting on chess.com, check out the group, The Student and His Game. I'm the super admin. Man, I like that term. Super admin there on chess.com for that group. It's a pretty great group. Just getting started back as of October 2015. But we got a lot of stuff over there. We got some puzzles. We've got forums to help you with stuff like in-game technique, middle game play. We got a lot of stuff there. So if you're interested, check that out. I think you'll find that pretty cool. So let's go ahead and get started with this game. I just want to say before this game, for those of you who idolize 1400s, 1600s, I remember I did at a point 1600s. Those were the people who were winning the reserve sections at tournaments that I would go to. The cutoff was like 1600, and so 14 to 1600s, those were people who I really looked up to when I started playing the reserve section as like an 1100. And now looking back, I'm like, wow, these people make so many mistakes, right? Of course, still, even as an expert today, even though I'm 2000, I still notice people around my level and myself included make a lot of mistakes. And so I just want to say, when you're going up against 14, 16, 18, 2000, even a master, know they're going to make mistakes and know that you can capitalize on them. All right. So let's go ahead and begin. We're not going to talk too much about the opening because it was kind of lame from Black's point of view. Actually, we are going to talk about the opening. We're going to talk about how bad it was for Black. All right, D5, C4, and Bishop D7. Ugh. You might have heard the term Knight BD7. Just kind of said a lot often, even if there's no knight on F6. Because the knight so often goes to d7 in queen pawn openings. Just knight bd7. You always say that because it always comes out to d7. And there's always a knight on f6, you know. But you don't ever really hear bishop d7 in queen pawn openings. In fact, you don't really ever hear bishop d7 in openings almost ever. Bishop d7 here just blocks the knight on d7. Even in some cases, the knight on f6, if it wants to retreat, can't retreat to d7, has to retreat to, say, e8. This guy here as well is blocking the queen. The bishop is doing absolutely nothing, and because Black eventually plays e6, it's doing nothing more than what it was originally doing on c8. Because he also plays, I believe, c6. Actually, I'm not sure about that. But what I can tell you is this bishop does nothing on this diagonal, so it's really virtually useless. On c8, it can come to b7, and it can exert a lot of pressure along this diagonal. So bishop d7 is a very bad move, and you're going to see white take advantage of it very quickly. Knight c3, d takes c4, e4. Here, I think Black could have actually maybe survived the opening with b5. Knight f3, e6, and then like bishop e2. Now the computer likes white in this situation, but at least Black has a pawn for his horrible situation. The pawn is sort of strong right now. It's got plenty of backing, especially if that knight on b8 can move, and then a6, c6 will back this pawn up. The problem is Black is just very uncoordinated. He's way behind in development. Central and kingside space, he's behind in. Queenside space, not too bad right now, but still much worse piece coordination for Black. White's pieces look beautiful here, but at least he has a pawn. He probably should have looked into this, but he played e6 instead. So White just was like, all right, sweet. A pawn's a pawn. Bishop b4, knight ge2. Knight c6, castles kingside, and you know what? Let's make White's game even nicer. All right, if we're Black being a 1400, by the way, let's just help White. Alright, so we know that bishops are slightly better than knights in open games. We know that pawns on c3 are generally better than pawns on b2 because they're closer to the center. So should we play bishop takes c3? All in favor, raise your hand. Hopefully no one did, because all this does is help white. I mean, you can leave a comment below if you want, telling me like one good thing. You could say, oh, it weakens e4. Well, I'm sorry, but e4 is going to be defended extremely easily. Some people do take with the bishop, so that is sort of logical in this line. The problem is, like in queen pawn openings, they sometimes take. The problem is, in this situation, exactly, it's a horrific move. It is terrible. The computer gives white already a 2-pawn advantage. Don't play bishop takes c3 in a semi-open game with little pressure to speak up in the center here, because this guy's gone. Notice black doesn't have a d5 pawn. Sometimes if he does, he can make white's center a little bit weaker. Like say when there's a pawn on b2 and a pawn on d5, and say this is captured. You can sort of try to at least mix things up with there being no c3 knight and thus a little bit weaker e4 square, especially if the pawn's on e3 and he wants to go to e4 and you're trying to stop him from accomplishing that aim. But in this case, e4 is already there. e4 is a rock. You can play f3 if you want to. And so destroying that knight is absolutely useless. So just thank you very much, and I will now destroy you. Right? Well, e5. All right. So let's talk about when to open up the center of the board. Right? So never open up the center of the board when you're behind in development, and never open up the center when your king is in the center of the board and your opponent's king is perfectly safe. So let's talk about e5. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just totally speechless. e5 is an absolute blunder. e5 is horrible. e5, it's completely insane. Let's see if I could be a little bit more clear. e5 is losing by force here. Computer gives white a 2.5 pawn advantage. White is just continuing to stroll on, destroying white, or destroying black. Alright? Is that clear? Do not open the center when you're behind in development. Do not open the center when your king is in the center of the board, especially when your opponent's king is castled and is safe. e5 also helps this dude over here, IF7, which is weak because it's going to still take 2 moves for black to castle. In fact, one of the main lines here is queen b3, attacking b7 and f3. I mean f7, b7, f7. I am not 100% sure, but I don't think after queen b3, b7 pawn is hanging because of knight a5. But regardless, this f7 pawn looks very, very weird. So one line possibly here, when the center's opened up, what do? You stop your opponent from castling. That's right, if they haven't castled already, obviously. Bishop a3. White did not play this, he played knight g3, but right now let's look at bishop a3, what he should have done. Bishop a3, knight ge7. Alright, so it's like, nope, you are not stopping me. Alright, fine, you know what? I'm going to just blow open the center. He takes d4, c takes d4. It's better than taking on f4, because if you take on f4, all you're doing is helping put more pressure on f7, because this file is going to be half open for the rook. The knight's going to have a nice square to go to over here on d5, or maybe even h5 to attack f7, so just not good to take the f pawn. So let's take the d pawn. Don't forget the pawn is hanging, that's why you got to take something. Takes back. Alright, castle's king side here, and something like queen d2. let's evaluate. So who's won the opening battle? Alright, so as far as development, who has better development? 3 check marks to white, 1 to black. Okay, black's got 3 pieces developed, ish, like hardly developed at all. White's pieces are, on the other hand, they've got 2 almost Jacobson bishops. If the bishop was over here on d2, then you've got these 2 bishops swarming over here up to black's king side. But still, you got these 2 bishops lined up next to each other, creating some serious havoc. You've got a queen centrally placed. You've got the rooks coming to any square you want. B1 is a nice looking square. C1 looks nice. D1 backs up the D pawn. E1 backs up the E pawn. Obviously on F1 here, backing up the F pawn. And what about white's queen? Well, the story for her is she can't go anywhere. I mean, E8 is not really an accomplishment for the queen to get to, you know? It's not like you can say, woohoo, I got to B8, you know? The queen wants to get to, like, you know, A5 or H4 or maybe B6 to exert some pressure, but nope. The C7 pawn, the D7 bishop, and the E7 knight all block the queen handily from doing anything. Of course, with the queen sitting on D8, you've got the rook on A8 and the rook on F8 completely doing nothing. So that's basically like if you add up the queen with 2 rooks, you get 19. 19 pawns, 9 for the queen, 2 for the rooks. You get 19 inactive pawns to white's 0. Of course, they still exist. So based on this, the computer gives white about a 2.5 pawn advantage here. So just horrible. This is just one sample line. White played instead after E5. He played knight G3. Not bad. Queen E7. Trying to salvage a position. Let's castle queenside maybe. Also stopping bishop A3. In here, white really gives away his advantage. He plays knight F5. Which after bishop takes F5, E takes F5, you've kind of lost control of the center, and you've allowed black to get rid of one of his bad pieces. More on that in a second. Let's go back. Before Queen E7, we talked about just how good of a position white had. Let me show you a cool line. Alright, so let's say rook B1. Alright, attacking the B pawn. So let's go castles. Alright, that's what he wanted to do, right? Oh, alright, Queen A4. So maybe we're threatening D5? Maybe? I don't know. But I can tell you in this position, let's say white or black completely loses his mind, knight F6. Alright, so what's the key move? D5, right? Well, nope, I'm tricking you here. Take a second, look at it. D5 is good. What is better? Alright, well, not completely winning. I mean, well, completely winning, but not over with, is Queen A6. Boom! Alright, F pawn or B pawn, I'm going to take you down. Alright, so the only move in this situation is really knight B4 or something like bishop G4. These are the top moves from the computer. Knight A5. Something has to give. You're either going to give up this B pawn and basically your entire queenside, or you're going to have to give up a piece like knight B4 blocks the checkmate. But on B7, so let's just say he says, I don't believe you. I'm taking on A6, and I'm threatening to play knight B8 and completely close down this A6 pawn. Sadly, you got bishop A6 mate. What a beautiful mate. You got the rook slicing down here, you got the bishop attacking over here. This is just a sample line of how good white's position is. Alright. So knight F5 was played. Now, knight F5 is bad for 2 reasons. First, when black takes back, we'll analyze this position. White's center is much weaker. After, say, he didn't do this, but let's just say black takes and white takes back, you've got an isolated D pawn, and you've got doubled F pawns. Your bishop all of a sudden doesn't look so good, blocked by the D4 pawn. You're better because black is still doing so bad with his development. Of course, you don't take now. Don't take now just because of rook e1. But I think he does at some point take on d4. But the isolated pawn, the double pawns, this bad bishop serves to get rid of all white's advantage, or at least most of it. So the e-pawn moving is a serious disadvantage for white. Also, when you are ahead in development, keep this in mind, asterisk this if you're taking notes, do not let your opponent unwind by creating or forcing trades. Alright, so think about it this way. If you have 10 men in a small room, let's take 10 men who don't know each other, alright? 10 men who don't know each other in a small room, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, not good. I mean, I don't know what you're thinking, but I can tell you that they're going to be upset because they don't have enough space. They're going to be upset because they're with people they just don't know. They're going to be angry because they can't move around. It's stuffy. You know what I'm saying? Just picture that in your mind, all right? And then say you take away 8 of them. Well, let's just start with 2 of them. Take 2 of them away. This is a little bit better, right? They've got a little bit more room to move around. It's probably a little bit less stuffy. You've just got a little bit more space. But let's say you keep going and only 2 of the men are left. Then all of a sudden it's great. I mean, the 2 will probably get to know each other and become friends and relax and take up space. I mean, when there's fewer men in a small room, it's generally better. Alright, it's coming from a man. But it's the same with chessmen. Same with chessmen. Alright, or chesswomen if you have a queen. Exact same thing. When you get rid of pieces in your opponent's cramped camp, all you're doing is helping your opponent unwind. It's less stuffy. He's got more room to move. Awesome. Right. So 2 reasons why he takes f5 is not good. Let's continue. Castles. Queen g4. Attacking g7. f6. Defending g7 and defending the threat of pushing the pawn, which would attack the queen. g7 mainly because the queen can block. Actually, the queen can't block. Basically, in this position, if f6 is allowed to be played, king's got to move, and you take the queen. Or the queen can block, and then you'll have g7. So f6, good. Here, black is threatening to take the pawn. Rook e1 would probably be best, stopping that from immediately happening, and then probably pretty soon just taking on e5, maybe, or trying to lock down the d pawn if you can, with bishop to b2 or bishop to e3. We won't dwell on this position because basically this is just a better version of what's to come. White plays okay from now on. Well, now until he makes his blunder from the next few moves. But Rook e1 is just simply developing a piece, putting some pressure on the e file a little bit more. It's a little bit better. So let's continue just with the main line here. He plays a4. Alright, not bad. But really he's lost most of his advantage. I mean, he's got the 2 bishops. Check mark. But black is unwinding, especially after he takes d4. Uh-oh, you're losing a pawn. Right? Alright, bishop e6 check would have been the move to go with first, followed by bishop e2. But instead, bishop e2 immediately. Now black is just completely winning because of knight e5, queen e2, and in this situation, white to move, and well, it's not really completely winning. But knight to move, or black to move, and find a serious advantage. Serious advantage, right? Take the bishop. Not quite. d3. d3. I'm not going to go into that line, but as you can tell, this isolates the bishop after the queen comes and you trade. This guy's a monster. In fact, I'm going to show you position pretty soon with that in mind. So keep that in mind here. After queen e2, knight takes c4 is possible as well. It's not as you basically lose a tempo compared to the other line. But the D train is just running down the board. I mean, next stop D2, with your final destination being D1. D-Town is just really happy right now. So I can tell you that in this position, White has gone from a complete advantage to a complete disadvantage in a matter of a few moves, just because he violated just a few principles, just a couple of principles. He violated the trading principle of trading when you're ahead in development. He also violated the central pawn, or just the central control property here of playing e takes f5. So knight e5, queen e2. Black makes a serious mistake. Goes from being just completely winning with d3 or knight takes c4 to knight h6. Now white is winning again. Bishop e6, king b8. Now let's go on. We're gonna go quickly through the next about 15 moves here. Got c takes d4, knight c6, d5. All right. D5. What a good way to defend the pawn with that strong bishop on e6, right? Nope. Rook takes d5. Keep this position in the back of your mind. We're going to go on for another few moves, and then I want to talk about one central theme here. So he misses a tactic. Simple tactics. Rook fe1, rook to d8, bishop to a3, queen e8, h3, give him some back rank space, knight d4. Finally deciding to win that bishop, knight takes c6, rook takes c6, queen takes a4. It's still pretty even, surprisingly. Only if black finds bishop to d6. Actually just saw this line as I'm going through it right now. Bishop to d6, and queen is attacked. Looks like queen d7 is good. And then black can play something like queen a3. Bishop c5 also is suggested here by the computer. Now bishop f4 is coming up. And I'm not exactly sure why. I should have looked this up beforehand. It looks like rook to a6 is a threat. Regardless, going back to queen takes a4. Black missed some more simple tactics. He played bishop c5. He says, what the heck, why play bishop d6 then bishop c5? He misses rook d1 check, followed by queen d5. Now there's no more threat to the a pawn. Queen a3, a6, and then queen e3. And then we're going to stop here to talk about what just happened. Alright, really quickly, I said at least 2 or 3 times simple tactics. Guys, if you're any level, I mean from the lowest of low, from like 100, 200 to 1200 to 1600 to expert to master to grandmaster, understand that tactics are possibly one of the most important things you can study. That, along with endgames and middle game structures and openings, are probably the 4 most important things to study. Tactics all the time. Tactics are used not only in tactical maneuvers, but also in strategic maneuvers. I can tactically justify the strategic maneuver because of a king check or something like that. So what I would suggest to you is try to study at least, like, say 5 tactics a day. And actually on chess.com you get to have 5 free tactics, if I'm not mistaken, for a free membership. You get unlimited I think you get 20 for the next membership up, which is gold, and then I think you get unlimited from there on out with better and better memberships. I've got the top membership. I think the it's either the platinum or diamond membership. I think it's the diamond one, and I've got unlimited tactics. But I would suggest do 5 to 10 tactics a day, and you'll be surprised. You'll start seeing things way better. All right, and you also just get a better sense of when tactics are in the air, and maybe you can try to look for a way to get your opponent into a situation where he loses to a tactic. So if these guys had been a little bit more tactically aware, I think they would have avoided some of these mistakes. We would have had a little bit better game. But I think for you, just study tactics and you're going to be good. All right. Well, not good. You're going to be better. All right. You're going to be a little better than you were before. So now we're going to talk about the next phase. And as I have depicted in the title, sacrificial attacks. When is it a good idea to go for sacrificial attack? One, it's a good idea to go for sacrificial attack when it mixes things up. Alright? Now, this is not always true. It's not always a good idea to do it when you mix it up, but it's often a good idea. If you're even and you're willing to risk a little bit, some people don't like to risk, but some people do. There's nothing wrong with risking. I mean, it's more risky, obviously, but if you risk a little bit more, you generally get a little bit more rewarded. All right. So when you mix things up, you give your opponent more of a chance to lose. Though if they play well, generally speaking, they'll be better. When you can mix things up, it's a good idea. Now, when you have a serious advantage, keep things simple. Don't try to make things crazy. If you're better, just win. If you're worse, like in this situation when your opponent just has 3 pawns more than you, then it's great. If you can, look, I mean, the A pawn, the B pawn, and C town over there, they're just coming down the board. They're just destroying everything. They're like water buffaloes just running towards the water, and they're just coming down so fast. It's ridiculous. Once the queens come off the board, the A, B, and C pawns are just goners. They're going to be up the board. They're just undefeated. They're going to wreck white. So by playing bishop takes b6, you get rid of 2 or 3 of them, and hoping that if he takes back, you can just take the A pawn after queen takes b6, get 3 pawns for the minor piece. You're down the minor piece, but the king is wide open. You've got some serious chances. So mixing things up, that's a good time to do it. Another good thing to do is when it completely opens up your opponent's king. And of course you have material to back that up. So in this case, if takes back and then queen takes back, you've got a completely wide open king, which is good. And you can try to start mating him with the rook and queen. It's not possible in this situation, but it's a good try. Again, as I say, white is just completely worse, so he's mixing things up. He's trying. And then it's not a good idea when your king is loose. In this situation, you're going to see very quickly why white's attack is just not okay. Basically, according to the computer, it's draw after a couple of moves, but after knight takes f5, bishop takes c7, king takes c7, and then queen a7. And the computer says this is just basically drawn. The one thing is, of course, the fact that you're worse is risky, and you're worse. But also the fact that this king is very, very loose. You've got queen checks. Alright, now when the king is on h1, and so you have some back rank defenses like a rook. And let's imagine white has a big kingside attack, and black has his pieces like queen on d8, and he's got some pieces undeveloped over here. If the white king is over here on d2, and say one tempo matters, let's say he's threatening mate on h7, he's got a bishop, he's got a queen. Imagine you could play queen d8 to d6 check, make the king move and play queen h6 to block. That's what a weaker king can do. So a sacrificial attack with the king not completely safe is generally not a very good idea. Here after queen a7, I think king d8, rook e1, something like queen e6, and white is holding on. Not completely drawn, but there's good chances for black to fall into a perpet. So let me show you what he did play, because the game ends very quickly in white's favor now. So it's like I say, the thing is, it mixes the game up. It's better than just going out quietly. So he mixes things up with queen b6 check. Now this is completely losing. Thank you, king d7. Thank you, king on h2. Because after rook e1, black can just simply play queen d6, and the game is completely lost. Just after the queen trade, I don't have to go through this. You're down a piece and a pawn. All right. So for some reason, black just completely lost his mind and played queen c6. He's still winning. But rook d1 check, knight d6. This is a good reason for sacrificing. It mixes things up. Queen a7 check. Queen c7 would be best in this situation, knocking off most of white's counterplay. But king e6 for some reason. Now the game is drawn. Queen takes g7. Rook h8. Now white is the one that has all the chances in the world. Rook e1 check. Queen takes f6. Queen c2, and the game ends with a nice central attack and a skewer. So going back to the sacrifice, do it when it mixes things up, especially if you're worse. Don't do it if you're just completely better. But white made a good decision to mix things up. He should have lost, of course. He was worse before, but he tried. He did it well, and look at the results. So never give up. Never give up if you have a chance to complicate. I don't when I know I can complicate things. Generally, I will resign down a pawn more often if it's a king and pawn versus king, and my opponent is decent and knows how to win. That in game, I will resign that because I have zero counterplay. He's just going to march the pawn up the board and queen it. Then I will if I'm down a piece and I have a chance to completely rip open the king position and try for something. I remember being down a piece against an expert one time when I was a 1600, and I just started pushing pawns and created threats. Eventually I got a rook for a minor piece to stop a pawn from queening, and then my opponent messed up and I got another pawn home, and he had to sacrifice more material. Ended up being down material and ended up losing. So mix things up, sacrifice when you are worse, but when you're better, don't. So I think that's a pretty cool game. So again, as I was saying at the beginning, if you idolize 1600s, cool, but they make a lot of mistakes. 1800s, 2000s, 2200s, they make mistakes too. Trust me, just look at the first game. That was between a 19 and an 1800. We saw plenty of mistakes in that game too. But thank you for listening, and can't wait for the next game. If you have any comments, please leave them below. And of course, if you have a game that you want me to look at, send me a link. Send me a link to like a website that I know, like iccwordchess.com. Don't send me to a link to some random website because I probably won't go there, thinking it's spam of some type. So try to like if you want me to look at one of your games, I might actually use it, analyze it, and put it out for all to see your awesome win or your interesting loss. So but thank you again for listening, and have a good day. Goodbye.